could not do it. I opened the door, and this thing unfolded out of the back of this little bitty thing, and it crawled right up, put its paws on both sides of my head, and began to spit into my face. And they're screaming, "You got him, buddy!" I'm negotiating with this dog. I'm the good boy. He finally dropped down off of me, and I know to turn, don't face him. And he began to headbutt me. I'm going, okay. He never bit me. And that dog became the first Bouvier in the United States Air Force.
I think everybody knows you. I think they've got to look. I think they got to look at you. They know you from your TV show. Which what was that show called again?
Alpha Dogs.
Alpha Dogs, right? That was an awesome show.
Thank you.
I got to say that.
I wish more people felt that way.
Well, I think more people felt that way, but I think for some reason it didn't get. I don't know why. I can't figure that out. We're going to talk about that in another. We're going to do another podcast. We're going to do two.
Great.
But you've done some pretty amazing things. Kenny Licklider, Vohne Liche Kennels, and I think what I want to focus on first, because in honor to Stoops, who introduced us, I want to talk about the beginning of the dogs in special operations.
Oh, okay.
I think that would be a really good place to start, because that's kind of what you're known for.
Yes, I mean, people know, the people in our career field know where all that started, but it wasn't something that we could put out and use, as any kind of advertisement whatsoever. But I'm very proud of it. We put guys in harm's way, and we lost no one ever, and we're proud of that.
That's pretty amazing. And so, but there's different kinds of dogs. Like if we look at the average military patrol dog, that's not what you're talking about.
No, sir.
Right. You're talking about a whole different level. And I think that's what I want to go into, because these dogs are the most elite dogs in the world. And I think you kind of covered a little bit on that on the Alpha Dogs. I kind of got a taste of it, although you didn't really mention it. But and we can't mention what the certain special ops, the certain divisions of the military, the elitist of the elite.
Right.
But how did that whole thing start? We talked about it at dinner. So let's put it out here for people to hear.
It was interesting. I've been working on my own. I retired in '93, and we had our kennel going, and we were working with the U.S. Secret Service quite a bit. And one day I got a phone call from Brian Mowry, and he says, "I've got a customer that they need some help with their detection." Okay. They showed up Monday morning, and out in the parking lot were these black, SUVs, and there were guys that got out of them that I instantly knew I was dealing with some sort of military, group. And what they were doing is they said they needed help with their detection. They had a dog with them, and I didn't get all the details right away, but this dog was in the back of one of these cars, and they're talking to me, and I said, "Hey, can you get the dog out?" And they told me about how they went over, they were sent into Europe to the top dog trainer to get the best dog. And he mentioned it was a female. I didn't know her name, and I'd been going over there for years. And I'm looking at this dog, and not trying to be a bad guy. Right in the middle of the conversation, I interrupted Brian. I said, "I'm going to take off running. You send that dog after me." I didn't have a suit on. I didn't have a sleeve on.
No sleeve, nothing.
Nothing.
Okay.
But I knew nothing was going to happen, and he's freaks. I can't do that. This is a pH 2. I said, "I don't care if it's a pH 104. Send this thing on me." And he wouldn't do it, so I said, "Watch." And all I did was turn and got big, and this damn thing ran behind his handler. And I didn't do it to embarrass anybody, but I'm a patriot. I'm a retired military member, and these guys were getting ready to go over to do the real thing with this dog. Well, I walked away because I didn't want to be in the middle of this, but by the time it was done, they ended up coming to Vohne Liche Kennels, and we started their program. It was great. I was so excited because I'm working with the top tier guys in the world, and we started their program. And while we were doing that, not long afterwards, the SEALs ended up coming too, and we started their program. So it was an exciting time in our lives. We were putting dogs into Iraq ourselves. We had more dogs in the war than the regular Army did.
What do you mean by that? You mean as far as not non-military dogs?
No, they were us,
right?
Guys that I hired and trained.
Got it.
Dogs that I imported. I tried to read. I had something in my head about what a special forces dog should be, and it wasn't what when I came in. It was a 100-pound German Shepherd,
Right.
and these guys are running, gunning, jumping in and out of helicopters, and doing this fast stuff, fast roping, and for them to have a 100-pound dog.
Yeah.
And I had been one of the first people to go into Europe for the military in 1982 to buy those 6 breeds that we wanted to test, and one of them was the Malinois.
What were the other ones?
Well, we bought Malinois, German Shepherds, of course, Bouviers, Giant Schnauzers, Rottweilers, and Dobermans.
Okay.
Everybody says, well, what about the Dutch Shepherd? Well, the Dutch Shepherd didn't exist back then. He was a Malinois with stripes.
Yeah.
So, I fell in love with the Malinois. They were little bitty dogs.
Yeah.
They were not what we see now. And they were little handler-eating, spinning, son of a guns. But we loved them. Ball drives and their tenacity, they're afraid of nothing. So, as Americans, I was over there on the first 2 bike trips, and we looked at them and we said, we're Americans. We don't like little Macs. We like Big Macs. And I swear they went behind the tool shed that day and began to crossbreed. That's why the Malinois has such a diverse look to it.
Yeah.
And they bred it with Mastiffs. They bred it with Shepherds. The Malaherd is one of the most popular dogs, and most people don't know they are Malaherds. They're mixes.
Right.
And that's what those guys are. They're mad scientists. They know this drive, and they were breeding them, and they were breeding them for us because we became the largest purchaser of dogs in Europe.
And that Maliherd is obviously a German Shepherd and a Malinois,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And that started back then just to build more size into them?
They wanted to build size. Everything's about the money.
Sure.
And we were a big customer now, so they were going to make us what we wanted. And the little Malinois was just, they were just small. So we built them, and we built them too big. They became little giraffes. I mean, they were bred with some big, tall dogs, and they still had that drive. So we said, well, let's bring it back. And that's what built what we see today. They brought it back. They tried to get it more pure. And now that you've got that standard 70-pounder, that all look the same. The pedigree Malinois, the Dupatois and those with the white blaze and the black face, you don't see much of that anymore, but they're still out there.
So you like the Malinois based, you were a big fan of the Malinois. That was one you would have wanted to just use.
Those are my boys.
You still like them the most?
Oh, yes. Now, I'm not saying, I'm open-minded.
I know, I get it.
And I like different stuff. Like I trained the first Bouvier in the Air Force, loved him. And now we've tried to train some in our kennels, Giant Schnauzers. Steve and I both love those.
Yeah, I do too.
But the reason there's not that many out there is that these guys are out to make money. And they know that the Shepherd and the Malinois is the mainstay here in the United States. We still get some of the other breeds.
But so do you ever see other, because I know we talked about, Steve talked about his dog that was one of the first dogs that was actually deployed. It was one of the only Giant Schnauzers that was ever deployed, right?
Sure it was.
And Creep.
Yeah.
Creep, right? But what I'm curious about is, so you talk about the Navy SEALs, and I know there's a couple others. The difference between the dogs that we normally see, as far as being a police dog, a patrol dog, or something like that, and these special operations dogs, these dogs were really saving lives. These dogs were really doing some amazing stuff.
Yes, they were.
So what kind of stuff were they doing? Besides the amazing detection, they were doing tracking, they were finding bad guys, and then you're dealing with apprehension as well, right?
Right, but at first they let me give my opinion. That's very rare, but they did.
Right.
And I had an idea. I had a vision that the police dog, the big badass that's growling, snapping at everybody and stopping bar fights is not what was needed in these war situations with these type of people.
Okay.
I thought, bring the dog smaller. Don't buy dogs that have already established themselves as alpha dogs. Buy the dogs that have it in them, do the testing, and know that they can achieve that, but don't achieve it one-on-one.
What do you mean by that?
Well, in the police world, you've got to bond with your dog, and you've got to have him for, it's just a ridiculous concept. But what I wanted is I knew these guys worked in teams. I knew that they didn't do anything by themselves. So I wanted to get a dog that I could train with a 4 to 5 man team. He had his primary handler, but they always work together. These dogs, Lackland called me names, said that I was full of shit. They said, this is impossible. They called them Licklider wonder dogs because we were teaching these dogs to go down dark hallways unmuzzled after a bad guy with guys shooting. And Michael said, that can't be done. It's been done ever since we started. Because these dogs began with a team. Everyone could handle them. Most police dogs and dogs on that side of the fence, you can't touch them. You can't get near them. Mm-hmm. These dogs, every operator can pick them up. Every operator can be there for them, and they're trained as a pack, not as an individual.
And doing that and training a dog to be more a team dog.
Yes.
Right. What's involved? You're saying you do that because the dog isn't handler specific or alpha at the beginning?
He does have a handler.
Right.
But he's also got a team. He's got a family.
Right.
Just like in a pack.
Okay.
They've got the pack leader, but they've also got the other pack members, and they're not always fighting, and they're not always trying to outdo each other. The pack leader leads that. So he does have a handler. Mm-hmm. But from day one, they're running ops. They're running the problems that we set up as a team.
Okay.
And the dog, nothing to it. There's a lot of cop dogs out there that if you walk up on that son of a bitch, he's going to eat you. If you come up behind him on a track, he's going to eat you. Mm-hmm. These dogs, nah. And Lackland thought it couldn't be done. Made fun of me. Okay. Now where are you at?
You proved it.
Proved it, yeah.
And were the dogs younger? Did you have to use a different style of dog?
You had to look for that dog. Remember I said that it wasn't already that alpha male that was in charge. Mm-hmm. He had the characteristics. He had the drives. He had the tenacity, the courage. But he was still, okay, if it's going to be 4 guys hanging out with me, I'm cool with that. But you had to do it from the beginning.
And when you looked at those dogs, when you were searching for those dogs, they'd be what, a year or two at least old?
Yeah, in the old days, in the beginning, I'll call it the old days. Used to be the young guy. Now I'm the old guy. You couldn't get a Malinois that was titled that was under 4 years old.
Sure.
You can't sell a 4-year-old dog. You couldn't give a 4-year-old dog away now, and they're wrong. Mm-hmm. The people, they're just wrong. But that's what's happened. Mm-hmm. So now they want 1-year-old dogs. You don't want a 1-year-old Malinois. Mm-hmm. He's a teenager. He's not developed fully. I liked him around 2.
Okay.
Because I couldn't sell 4. So I liked them around 2. They had enough in them, but they didn't have that over the top. Mm-hmm. I'm going to dominate everybody. If you're not my handler, I'm going to eat you. Mm-hmm. And that was imperative for what these guys needed.
And how could you look at that dog? Because it's always fascinating to me. Obviously with a puppy, you can't see it, but let's say a 2-year-old dog, you're looking at a dog, you're on a buy trip and you're looking at 10, 20 dogs. What is it when you pull that dog out of a kennel that makes you say that dog, that one, that's going to be that's going to be a dog that's going into the special operations, into the elitist of the elite dogs?
Starts out social skills. Starts out, is he social? A good dog doesn't have to be an asshole. A good dog isn't mean. A good dog's an MMA fighter that turns it on, beats your ass, and then when it's over, he drinks a beer with you. And I use that analogy. Some people are buying the wrong dogs and they wonder why they're eating up everybody. I went over there and I did the test myself, but I had other people around me and I had these dogs coming in and out of me. And I knew if these Europeans didn't want me doing that, I knew I didn't have the right dog to start off with. And from what we saw, I started getting a mental picture and I could literally tell when I took them out, did they want to be with me? Mm-hmm. Were they having a good time? Mm-hmm. A dog that does the work doesn't have to be over the top. Mm-hmm. He can be that MMA fighter, gets in that fight, gets after it, and when it's over, he goes and lays down like yours is doing right here. And that's the idea I had. Nobody believed in me. I didn't care. Again, I was kind of dangerous. I'd already retired, so to speak. So I just had that idea, and they went along with me, and it worked out.
And when so we talked about this earlier today, you stood up the first teams with dogs. Mm-hmm. You did it.
Teams.
Operations.
Okay,
right?
Those guys.
Those guys, yeah. Okay. I don't want to say it because if I say it, somebody's going to...
The boys.
Yeah, the boys. Okay. The boys.
Well, we put them through a basic course.
Right.
Then they always go back and they do their own stuff.
Okay.
So what
does your basic course look like?
We're going to get, it's mostly for the handler. Okay. But we're getting this dog through, some obedience. I'm not one of those trainers that will tell you that obedience is the cornerstone of everything. If you do obedience wrong, you're ruining your dog. So I'm different with that. I want obedience, but I want it to be positive. I want this dog to understand that I'm not going to beat your ass every time I tell you to sit. So we start with some obedience, but let me take that back. We don't start with it. We start with detection, because the primary job of these dogs over there is not to bite people, not to find them and eat them up. It's to find that bomb before 10 of them go through that fence or 10 of them go through those doors. That, and I remind them as much as I can, your primary is that bomb, because that'll kill all of you, so we get the bomb going. We get that really strong. We start the tracking, because that's the nose too. Now it's turned out after we've been doing this that they don't use tracking a whole bunch. They're jumping out and hitting a house or hitting a field, and that's what they're doing. But we do tracking anyway. It's a good exercise for the dogs. And then we get into the bite work. Bite work in buildings, bite work outside, bite work in every situation we can think of. And it builds on itself. We believe in successive approximation. We take it and we build it, and we get it to the point where this dog can function out there as a team member. Now they go back after our course and they do all that specific stuff that those guys do. Yeah.
We can't talk about.
Can't talk about it. Yeah.
We could.
Then
they kill us.
Yeah. At night they crawl through our windows.
So when you're getting the original dog for this job, it's 2 years old. It's got some basics. It's got some basic obedience basics. It's got a good nose, and it's got enough confidence to bite and stay on a bite.
And he's happy to be with you.
And he likes being with you, right? Because that's one thing Stoops always talks about, right? He likes a hard dog, he likes a strong dog, but he wants a social. He wants to take to a coffee shop. And people just don't get that. Like I've talked to people, they always say, no, these dogs are tough. These dogs are dangerous.
They can't be around anybody.
Right. Yeah.
Bullshit.
It's complete. And you've sold more of these dogs and trained more of these dogs than probably anybody on the planet.
46 years next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a long time. Yeah. And when you started with Vohne Liche, it was kind of a very humble beginning.
I didn't want to do it. Steve was my buddy when I was still in the military, and I had 17 years in before I sold my first dog. I wouldn't do it. I wanted to make sure I knew what the hell I was doing, and so I wouldn't even teach for Steve. Steve had Dogs Against Drugs, Dogs Against Crime, and he would do seminars, and he'd ask me to teach, and I wouldn't teach. I'd go out and run problems for him because I wanted to make sure, and it really confounds me. Nowadays, guys have trained one dog in their life, and they are dog seller extraordinaire.
Or a dog trainer.
A dog trainer. Yeah. My ego was small enough that I wanted to make sure. So I didn't sell till I had 17 years in, and then I retired early. Thank you, President Clinton. He gave anybody an E6 or above that had 16 years, and I was an E8.
Wow.
And I had almost 16 years in, and I retired. I said, no.
Air Force, right?
Air Force.
My dad was in the Air Force.
Was he?
Yep.
So he had to have been a good man.
Yeah, good man.
There you go.
Very good man.
But I mean, I wasn't liking the military because I want to work. I still do. I still train dogs, and I'm half crippled. I look like an 80-year-old man. But I wanted to work, and these guys didn't want to. And as an E8, they expected me to just put a cigar in my mouth and walk around, and I didn't smoke, and I didn't do that. So I retired. And I didn't have a job. I had a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I had no job, no nothing. So I looked at my wife, and I said, we got to start training dogs out of the house. And my first classroom was in my living room.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a growing experience. But if you stayed humble, it was easy because the dogs out in the civilian world at that time were horrible, absolutely horrible. So that's how it started.
So you started out in your living room with 1 or 2 dogs teaching class, and now Vohne Liche Kennels is?
Well, we were the biggest. During the war, we had more dogs in the war than the military had. The military had let themselves go in about 1982. They had went and said, don't track anymore. They were cutting back on the core things that we were going to need in 2002. And a guy's career is 20 years. So they stopped in 82. When the war started, there was nobody who knew how to track. There was nobody that really knew a lot of things. So they contracted, and I'd been doing some contract work in there with my guys. Well, the big officers over there saw Steve's guys tracking people, catching them, putting them in Abu Ghraib, and they're calling back, and Lachlan told them to call me. And they're yelling at me from the battlefield saying, we want some of them dogs. I said, sir, I can't do that. I'm not the military. Well, they called the military gave them permission, and we started selling to the regular, and doing all kinds of crazy. It was amazing. It's the best part of my life, because I went over to Iraq 3 or 4 times, Afghanistan 3 or 4 times. We had 300 teams in Afghanistan, 300 bomb dog teams.
Wow.
It's called the TED program. It's the most successful program the military has ever had. And they wrote that. But then with only 6 months left, they rebid it. Now, I'm kind of thinking there's some politics happening here. Most successful, 300 teams, they rebid it, and they took it and gave it to someone else. But they never put them in action.
So the TED program,
yes.
I want to talk about that, because that was a program that started when? When did that
huge. It was at the end of Iraq. It went into Afghanistan, because that's where we ended up. They bought 300 from me, handlers and dogs. We trained them at our place. Then they flew us from Grissom Air Force Base out to Yuma, Arizona, to get the heat in the desert part. Then their certifiers certified us, and that's a whole story in itself. And then we went into Iraq and Afghanistan, and I sent trainers and supervisors. And that program saved so many lives.
And so I want to talk about those TED dogs a little bit, because they were designed to track. No. TED
dogs were different.
Okay, that's what I want to find out.
Okay, I jump all around.
Yeah.
There were so many programs, Robert.
Okay.
And we were in the middle of all of them.
Wow.
I've never been happier in my life, and we were saving lives, literally saving lives. The TED program started from me being over there for other programs. The tracking dog program we did, it was us. And I'm walking the fields, and these colonels and generals were talking about IEDs. And I'm just a stupid civilian walking along with them.
Right.
And I finally said, excuse me, sirs, but why won't you let us train some dogs and put them out in front of all your mechanized units, in front of all your troops? And this guy spun his head on me, like, why are you talking? And then he looked at his underling, and he whispered, and the underling looked at me and said, you could put dogs out in front for what purpose? I said, to tell you the IED's there before you ever get to it. They shook their heads. 3 years later, I got a call from the Pentagon. Took them 3 years. Now, how many bodies? How many legs? How many arms?
Yeah.
And after we put them in there, we lost nobody.
Wow.
And I'm not down on anybody, but
of course not.
The system just took too long. We told them we could do this. And 3 years later, I got a call from the Pentagon. Can you really do that?
So when you're talking about a tracking dog and a detection dog, are those?
They're not the same.
Okay, because that's a big confusion, right? It can be really confusing people. So let's differentiate between a combat assault dog, right, which is going to encompass all those, or multi-purpose dogs.
Right, multi-purpose.
Right.
That's the term we like
Not
to
dual
use.
purpose, right?
No, multi.
So let's talk about those purposes. Let's talk about like the tracking,
okay,
the detection, and then the apprehension.
Okay.
If we can. Let's
go with detection, because I'm telling you, detection, and you're going to get people calling saying I'm full of shit, but detection is the bomb. That's the thing. If they're not a good detector dog, you're going to get killed. Okay, and not just you, but anybody that's walking around you or behind you. So we put a lot of emphasis on good explosive detection dogs that will find it without you cueing them into it. I do a class all over the world called Obedience to Odor. A lot of the training in the past, you walked backwards, looking for a bomb, you led the dog to the bomb. Just think about what I just said.
You're saying this is the way they would train them. Oh.
No, they're still doing it today. Well, teaching these bomb dog handlers to walk backwards, tapping every 6 to 8 inches or 12 inches. It was determined back in the 70s. And it's as wrong can be. Would you walk backwards looking for a bomb?
No.
So we changed that. We said, no, we're not doing that no more. We're going to let these dogs, we're going to teach the dogs the odors, and then we're going to let the dogs understand that it's their job to save us, not our job to save them. So I think the detection is the biggest thing. If you get a good detector dog, we lost no one out of 300 teams. Prior to that, or at the same time, get the stats from Uncle Sam and see how many they lost.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the detection.
Okay.
Second neatest thing I think the dogs do, but surprisingly, it's not being used a lot by the guys, is tracking.
Okay.
And tracking to us, there's big arguments, tracking versus trailing.
Mm-hmm.
Finding the man or finding the disturbed vegetation. And we teach that it's a combination of all those things. And tracking and trailing is just verbiage. Mm-hmm. Tracking is what the sport people do. Mm-hmm. And the sport people are great. Everybody used to make fun of them. I love them. I think they work hard. Mm-hmm. But tracking is footstep to footstep.
Right.
You cannot waver. If they take a left turn, you better take that left turn right on that left turn.
And sharp.
And sharp, or you don't win. And everybody's trying to win.
Right.
That's tracking. Dropping hot dogs. I never caught a bad guy that dropped a damn hot dog out of his back pocket.
Right.
But that's a good way to teach that. Mm-hmm. But trailing is the art of, and this is me talking, and a lot of people are going to argue with me, is teach them the tracking, but then teach them that it's okay if the wind's blowing across here and that your bad guy went over and he's sitting right here, you get about right here, a tracking dog better not lift his head, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But a trailing dog that's trying to save your ass, he can smell you because that scent cone's coming right down across there. Mm-hmm. He better lift his head and he better know that he's not going to get his ass kicked if he tells you and goes to that. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing.
It just staying on that for a second. Is it hard because some of these dogs obviously have some basic training in them, probably tracking, right?
Over there. Tracking, yeah, the sport tracking.
So now you're going to convert that dog into a trailing dog
Yes.
and make this dog do things differently.
But you don't have to convert them. You just have to allow it.
I like that.
You hear me?
I love it.
Because you know what the sport guys,
Sure.
and hey, I'm one of those guys that loves sport guys. I think
Me
sport
too.
guys work their asses off more than some of us cops and military guys do because they spend their own money and they're doing it because they love it. But not everything that works in sport will work on the street.
Right.
If you do a track on the street, you'll never catch him.
That's my point, right?
My crippled ass will outrun you.
Right.
You know, so I'm sorry.
No. Okay, so now we've got the detection dog.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got the tracking dog.
Tracking dog.
And now we're going to go to the apprehension dog.
The apprehension dog.
Right. So
Now, for cops, it's getting tough.
okay.
For the military, it's a whole different operation. It's a whole different mission, okay? The type of dogs we work, the type of handlers we get. We're getting young guys now that won't handle those tough dogs. So that's kind of helping that situation a little bit.
They're also not really breeding dogs the same way
They're
they
not.
were, right?
The
Back
Europeans
then, right?
aren't. Yeah. The Schutzen clubs over there and the the KNPV clubs and stuff, they're falling apart because people are stopping, the old grizzled guys that had more scars than they had skin, they're going away.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's changing.
I mean, the training is going softer. They're
Softer.
trying to do away with the e-collar. They're hard. And for some of it, I think it's good. I mean, they're getting happier dogs, but in all, the dogs are becoming much like they want the stick hits out. They want this out. Yeah. So you're getting a softer dog. Does that make it harder for a guy like you?
In a way.
Okay.
In a way. But we've changed too. Mm-hmm. So in the days in the 70s and 80s, we wanted hard dogs. Now they don't want them. In fact, a lot of departments are going to single purpose dogs, which I don't think they should. Mm-hmm. They should get the right social dog that turns on and turns off. Mm-hmm. And they should train their handlers better. But it's changing.
So the last part of it is talking about the apprehension dog. So
right.
the dog, they know there's a bad guy. They have to do something. They have to act. They have to get the guy. And there's a big difference between sport dogs, right, and real police or military apprehension dogs.
Yes.
So what I want to touch on is what do you look for in the dog? How do you train that to go from, because dogs that are on the sport, that's what you're starting with, those are all very, very equipment specific dogs.
Yes, they are.
Right.
Okay.
So tell me. So what do you do?
Well, there's people out there that are writing articles that sport dogs can't be police dogs. Mm-hmm. Well, that just shows what they don't know. Right. Because 99.9% of all police dogs start in the sport. Mm-hmm. The key is to find that dog that is not equipment fixated, and that's hard because they start when they're this big, and they throw them jute toys, and they play tug, and they teach them their whole lives that to bite this equipment in their training. If they come off and bite your decoy for real, we're screaming and yelling and getting them off quickly. So it's a real mind game.
So most of those dogs, what you're saying, you said a very high percentage of those dogs are never even going to bite somebody. They're just biting equipment.
If you don't recognize that and do steps like we do, the muzzle. We do a lot of our work. Once we've taught the handler how to deal with this and we make sure the dog bites well, plus we use a lot of suits. So the old days, the decoy ran and when the dog got close to him, bent over and presented his arm. I've never caught a bad guy that gave me his arm.
Right.
So what we're doing is we'll start with a sleeve just the first day, just so that we can see that this guy's not a total,
Right.
Then we go right to suit. And in the suit, we're teaching them to hit the first thing they come to.
Okay.
But we also target areas that are high in nerve endings and that type of thing, the armpit. We want them to take them to the ground, so we got them hitting up high. Well, the Europeans, and I waver all the time, so bring me back. But
Sure.
The Europeans pulled one on me a few years back. To gain more points, everything's about points there to win the championships.
Sure.
They went from the flying Melinda that hit up in the shoulders to the legs. And they didn't really tell us, and we got our decoys running with no suit on or not realizing that he's going to go there. But now we know it. So and we know how to see which way the dog's going to go. But we want to teach that dog using suits. A lot of people, they say hidden sleeve. A hidden sleeve is only hidden once. And then he knows what the hell you're doing. Yeah. But muzzle work, a lot of muzzle work.
Okay.
Teach them that he can take you down, and we want them to take the guy down. That's where they're in charge. But they realize they have the power to do that without biting. But you got to know what you're doing, because if you that's like tying your hands back and saying, let's box. Well, we've got to let that dog know that just that muzzle punch can take their adversary out. And it doesn't take much to teach them that. And then you just got to watch how you're training, watch what you're doing with that dog. And when you get out on the street, understand that your first deployment might not be successful, might not be beautiful the way you want it. But as long as he pursues, as long as he doesn't go past him and go run off in the field, as long as he stays, even if he just grabs it and rips a little piece of clothing, praise him. And cops, and even military, they're disappointed because they've been working so hard and they think that's a bad dog. No, he's not. He's got to make that transition from this big armed suit to that human being, which they were always yelled at if they did. So they got to make that transition. They got to understand this is a mind game for the dog. Even if he just runs into him and knocks him down, woo, you should be the happiest person in the world to relay that they're doing right.
Yeah.
Now, how do you pick a dog that's more apt to do that? You watch how he comes in on a bite. All these people, they talk about, oh man, he's a crusher. What's it take to cut your skin?
Not much.
And crusher doesn't mean anything.
Right.
I look for his intent. I look for his speed. The ones I really like are the ones that are coming, and when they start to close, they speed up and they crash into you. Their intent is there. How hard they bite you, to me, doesn't mean anything. The dog's job is simply to slow you down so that we can make the apprehension. It's not to maim you. It's not to tear you up. If they just knock you on the ground, my fat, can catch up and apprehend the guy. So it's a little different outlooks than what it was years back.
So the idea of, and I want to kind of touch on this because it's something you said that's important. And there's a big controversy going on everywhere where they're trying to get rid of police dogs, or they're trying to get rid of even the sports, Schutzen, French ring, Monty ring, Belgian ring.
Are they?
Yeah, in Europe, they're really moving towards that. And what they're saying is these dogs are dangerous, these dogs are this. And I talked to Stoops about it on a podcast a couple podcasts ago, and he's a big proponent. These are the nicest dogs. Every dog that I've seen, military dog, I mean, we were down working a dog, and this dog was the nicest dog. You could cuddle the dog, do whatever, till it comes time to do the job.
Time to do the work.
Do you think that these dogs, without any training by somebody like you, muzzle training, suit training and stuff, would just automatically go biting somebody?
No.
You don't?
No, they don't.
Yeah.
A dog biting a human was bred out of them hundreds and, I'm bad at figures and knowledge.
No, I know what you mean.
But you know what I mean.
For sure.
They don't naturally bite humans anymore. You have to teach them.
Unless it's just a wrong something.
Right. Something that went, I teach the different reasons dogs bite. And do we want it? What does it look like? The decoy's got to know, but a dog doesn't naturally bite. And what's funny is when we're training them, if they do bite a guy for real in training, we're yelling, but, and then we want to go out that first night on the street and he go ravage a guy. Well, that's not the way it works.
A mixed signal.
Yeah.
A big mixed signal.
Big mixed signal.
So let's talk about now the difference between a sport dog and now we're sending a dog out for a SWAT dog or a combat dog in a very, very dangerous situation. These dogs and sport people are always, I know a lot of guys who are in the sports who then want to teach police and military stuff. Now, whether they're good in the sport or not, I think doesn't matter. But I think there's a special skill. And I mean, to me, Stoops is the guru on this stuff. I love watching and even talking to him. But he talks a lot about the danger that is presented to the public, the police, and potential victims if you can just do a verbal out on the hey, out, and the dog just automatically, I'm going to let go, I'm going to lie down, and I'm going to be a good dog, and I'm going to return to heel position and a focused heel, I'm going to do that. That's not reality, is it?
Him and I have argued about this before.
Okay.
I'm 90% on his side and 10% with a little bit different point of view. When you out a dog, in sport, the decoys know to just stand there, not move. On the street, as soon as that dog lets go of them, that guy's freaking. He may take off or make some furtive movement. Well, that's going to draw the dog back in.
Prey drive.
That's why I do not like the bark and hold. There's no one in the world going to stand still when one of my dogs is doing 100 miles an hour right at them. They're going to do something. That's another argument. Now, whether or not you should out the dogs.
Well, I'm talking about a verbal out, right?
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Because they should out.
They should out.
Right, but...
And there would be a situation where you want to be able to do that. And we argue about this.
Okay.
But the whole point of having the dog is so you don't got to go in and fight this guy. You don't got to be in that combat. He's doing that combat for you. He could have a knife. He could have a gun. And if, say you've sent your dog, and as you come up, he's in a position where you're going to have to get in there and put yourself in a situation. That's when I think you should, if you could get that option of outing that dog and then just cover him. But I'm not disagreeing with Steve, but I've had dogs that would out.
Verbal.
Yes.
And how does that work? I mean, because I'm super curious about it as well. So the dog
training.
So the guy is being bit on the bite. The dog verbally outs.
Yeah.
I say outs. The dog outs. Yeah. And what does the person do?
Does
it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. Why are you calling him out? Right. I would only call him out
if you can cover him.
If I can cover him, and if it was a situation that if I had to go in there, that dog, I love him. I've spent my entire life.
Yeah.
But if he gets hurt, that's a heck of a lot better than me calling Mrs. Snuffy and saying her husband's dead.
I agree.
So there's a fine line in there. And if you want to take him off strong all the time, okay, that means you're moving in to a bad guy that you sent an animal on. And the only reason you would have done that is if he's dangerous, if he's already shown the propensity or the ability to hurt you. Now, sometimes you want to do that, but I don't know. I've done it, and not every dog is that great, and there's 100,000 more dogs on the street when I started. So we could do more, and we could train more, and not every one of ours would do it either. But that's what I worked for. And if he outed and started coming back, I would out and down him. In the 70s, we would out and bring them back. Well, I didn't like that because they broke contact, and as they're coming back, that guy could do something. Filipinos, they'd be up and over a fence in a second. So we knew we had problems, but each era had different problems. So am I disagreeing totally with Steve? No. But would I strive to be able to do it? Maybe.
You'd strive for it.
Yeah, I'd strive for it. Yeah.
And those dogs, is the idea that they go in, they bite, they stay on that bite, they dominate on that bite, or continue to attack?
No, what we want is for them to come in, grip, and hold.
Okay.
Just like the sport. They want a good, strong grip. Because our job, and people got to understand that, is not to hurt people. It's to slow them down so my old fat butt can catch you. You know, that's what they're for. Detect, detain, and deter. Or detect, deter, and detain. It's the 3 Ds.
Okay. That should be on a T-shirt somewhere.
It should be. Well, it used to be, but we're forgetting. We're thinking that these dogs are to maim these. They're not. It's simply to slow them down. The human being does it. I ask my classes, "What's the dog for?" "Oh, to apprehend a guy." No, he's not. He's to slow him down enough that you can apprehend him. And people have lost that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's such a movement for, I mean, now I think politically correct movements are really, I think it's starting to backfire slowly, but I mean, there was a time, and we're seeing it here in California now. I don't know when somebody's going to be watching this podcast, but they're trying to get rid of police dogs.
Yeah, it's crazy.
There's movements. San Francisco, New York had movements to try to get rid of e-collars and stuff like that. I mean, they're thinking everything in dog training can be done with a cookie and a toy, which it's really a nice idea. I love it.
They've wrote about me for using choke chains. Yeah. What the hell are you going to use?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always said that one thing I always go back to, and I say, you know, we shouldn't be calling them shock collars. You should be e-collars, remote collars, choke chain. I call it a slip lead. You know, it's the positive only movement has a really good idea, but they've never done it. It's just curiously, I mean, you've been in this game for 40 something years. Has there ever been a protection police dog, military dog trained with a clicker only or positive only, cookies and treats without using a correction?
No, sir. No, sir.
Would you say that in a court of law?
Yes, I would. I mean,
and I think you love
clicker
dogs.
trainers. You're hitting on a lot of things.
Yeah,
clicker training.
Yeah,
I got a clicker right here.
Yeah.
Everybody wants their 10 minutes of fame or 15 or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And they're making stuff up. The yes thing that's out there now. The clicker. You can click. You can use your voice. The yes thing. What's the difference between yes and good boy?
No.
Nothing.
Yeah.
But the new people coming in, they hear this and they go, oh, wow. And they want to do it.
Yeah.
Well, okay. But to me, keep it simple, stupid. You know, the KISS method.
Yeah.
And there's so many topics we could talk about.
Well, I mean, I always say this as a trainer. I say there's no real new ideas in dog training.
There's not.
Right? I don't think dog training, you know, back from the Keeler days to the Conrad Most days to the modern most new stuff you see now. I think it's just it's an interpretation of the same old thing. You know, it's like music. I always say, you know, the Beatles and the Led Zeppelin play the same chords. Same chords, but they just sound a lot different, you know, when you play them. So that's the thing. But so let's talk about the military dogs a little bit more, because the next time we talk, I want to talk about your movie dogs and all that stuff. And I think that's really cool stuff. The military dogs are now the big topic. Right, they're talking about him in the movies, and everybody wants a Malinois. The Malinois breed is getting washed out and destroyed. Now I've never saw a Malinois in a shelter 10 years ago. Right. Now every time I look, they're in the shelters. What do you think is who shouldn't have these dogs? Like what's going on there with the wrong people getting these dogs? Do you get calls, people who just want to buy a dog from you?
Oh yeah, we don't sell. If I sell you a dog and you're not a cop or a military member, you've been interviewed and I know you, or, you know, I just don't do that. Not that it can't be done.
Sure.
That's not our bag. The Malinois is a pet. You know, that dog in the movie Dog was ours.
Yep.
And you ought to have seen the articles. Oh, they shouldn't put this movie out, people now. And it was true. People ran and bought.
I was one of those people.
Were you?
Yeah, because here's the thing. 101 Dalmatians, you got a Dalmatian.
Every
idiot wants a Dalmatian. The Beverly Hills Chihuahua, everybody wanted a Chihuahua. Lassie, everybody wanted a Collie. So I did say that, but I ended up seeing the movie, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow.
Okay.
It was a freaking good movie.
It was.
It was a damn good movie.
Yeah,
I liked it a lot. But that still being the case, I still think that people don't know what they're getting into.
No, they don't. It's a fad.
Right.
And I agree with you, and I won't sell. You know, I get people calling me up going, I want the biggest, baddest Malinois you got. I love that show. They don't get a Von Lick dog. You know, it's like anything. You want to buy or you want to have what you can handle. And if you are going to get a dog that is used for, you know, purposes as the Malinois are, you need some training. Even if you're just going to use it as a pet. So should the average person have a Malinois? No. But if that average person took the time, went to class, got a dog, had a mentor, could he get a Malinois?
For sure.
Yeah. But it's not for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I had a Shar Pei, I worked in rescue, did a lot of dog training. And then I rescued 6 or 7 Malinois. A couple went to cell phone detection dogs. A couple went, and then I wanted one, but none of these dogs would have been right because I had this Shar Pei that was my pet. And I remember I talked to the rescue lady, and she goes, you know what, I'm going to turn you on to this friend of mine who's a breeder. And she turned me on to Tasha, a friend of mine, and she was breeding. They're mainly show line, but they've got a lot of strong herding lines. And she said, have you ever had a Malinois? And I said, no, but I've trained a lot of really dominant dogs and stuff. And I said, I think I can handle it. And she gave me that break. And it's always that thing. People always say, well, you can't have a Malinois as your first dog. Well, at some point, you're just going to be your first Malinois. What was your first Malinois like, dude? Like when you first turned that page and got a Malinois, what was your first Malinois experience?
Remember, I was one of the ones that went to Europe.
That's what I want to know.
And we were buying 600 at a time. and I was a young ranking guy, and we're the ones that had to go to the cars. They didn't have what we have now and pull these things out that were already attack trained, didn't know what we were. So my first experience, I loved it. I was a young, strapping guy, and this was a challenge. Now, did I get ate up a lot? Yes.
You did.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. The first Bouvier, he come out of the back of this crate, and you couldn't see anything, but something snarling at you. And all my buddies are going, get him out of there, Lick. They called me Lick back then. They're not helping. So I couldn't not do it. I opened the door, and this thing unfolded out of the back of this little bitty thing, and it crawled right up, put its paws on both sides of my head, and began to spit into my face. And they're screaming, you got him, buddy. I'm negotiating with this dog. I'm the good boy. He finally dropped down off of me, and I know to turn, don't face him. And he began to headbutt me. I'm going, okay. He never bit me. And that dog became the first Bouvier in the United States Air Force. Wow. We took all these dogs back to Lackland, and I was able to get 2. So the first 2 Malinois, the first 2 Giant Schnauzers, all those breeds. I never had more fun in my life.
Wow.
And we fell in love with them. And I think I was the one that was selling them when I got out. Nobody was selling them back in the 80s. When I got out in 93, I had people that were writing bad things about me, trainers saying I'm just trying to pawn off these out of control Malinois. They didn't even know how to say it. But I put my faith in them, and I put my faith in passive response detection. Nobody believed in it. I said, even my buddy tried to get me to train him an aggressive response dog. I said, no, this is the future. This is why would you train a dog to tear people's shit up when you can get them to stare at it and put a little dog snot on it? And why would you get, and the Malinois, they said they wouldn't track. That was the big thing. Go back and look at they said the Malinois would not track because he was a very prey-oriented dog.
Right.
True. But they didn't know how to train him because the number 1 tracking dog in the wars was a Belgian Malinois. The number 1 tracking dog at my school was Belgian Malinois. We went up against everything to include bloodhounds. But you got to train them. You can't let them use they're prey-oriented dogs.
Right.
But as long as you know how to train them, and you're not dropping hot dogs, you're doing it a certain way, they are some tracking freaks. Wow. So they're great animals. Look at this thing sitting here.
Oh, I love them.
But people were getting them for the wrong reasons.
What do you think is the difference in like a layman's explanation? If somebody says to you, Kenny, what is the difference between a Belgian Malinois and a German Shepherd? Because they look alike.
Speed, tenacity, drive.
Speed, tenacity, and drive.
So some of those things are same words, but they're just muscle, bone, and courage. Now, they've been bred and bred and bred, so you got to find the ones that I'm talking about. But there's no task they won't attempt. There's nothing you can't train them to do. And all those people back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s that said they wouldn't track, come look.
So when you saw your first one, I mean, obviously it was a different dog, right?
He's little.
Which I still like those little guys. I still think they're cool. Was your training modified to work with a dog that was this Malinois?
No, we made a big mistake in the military. We had been used to training German Shepherds.
Right.
We've been used to a certain way. And you know how men are. The school wouldn't change as fast as they should have. But I was running a big kennel with 20-something single guys. I was single. Wow. And we began to moderate and change. And we were doing pretty good. But where I really learned it was when I got out. You know, in the military, dog don't work, you throw him away. You know, it's government money. But when you're running your own business, it's got to work or you go bankrupt. So I started learning what would work or what I felt would work for the way I was training. And it changed a lot of stuff. It just changed so much. Like I was taught to track into the wind. Believe that? Track. And it didn't. I hated it. One day, sitting on the bathroom throne, I got an epiphany and I turned it around. Out there, our tracking course is used by the military to this day. And it was just stuff that was common sense. Don't oogie boogie run away and get behind a bush. All you're teaching that dog to do is go find a bush.
Prey drive, yeah.
Yeah, and to look for objects. And they were still doing that when we took our course and went into Afghanistan and Iraq. Wow. But I just liked the dogs. I liked the experiences, and I want any new dog. We're doing some new dogs now, and some people know about them, but they're called yak terriers. Oh,
really?
They're about that big, and if they were Malinois, you couldn't handle them.
Wow.
But they're nice. I got some video of them on my thing. And
I like to see it, yeah.
We put them in Oklahoma City. We put them overseas. They are some hunting. You know, they're bred to hunt rats and rabbits and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, and that's all they want to do is hunt.
So it's a real terrier.
It's a terrier.
It's a
yak
yeah.
terrier. Jag. They pronounce it yak, but it's J-A-G.
Oh, Jag.
Jag.
It's from Germany.
Yes.
Oh, so okay. So it's like a hunting terrier.
Yes.
Jag.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, Jaeger is a hunter. Okay. Oh, I didn't realize it. Because when you said yak terrier, I thought you meant like a yak.
That's just my way of. I didn't say I knew how.
Yeah. That's funny.
But I like different dogs.
Yeah. So what are you training those dogs for?
Detection.
Bomb.
We've got some in Oklahoma City as drug dogs. We've got some all over the place. I think we've got 1 or 2 bombs. They're starting to grow. And we're going to put a bunch of them on video here soon because most people don't know about them. Yeah. And, you know, the cops, he's a little dog. How's he going to find something up there? They don't understand odor to begin with.
Right.
But if I tell my yak terriers to go up there, they're going to tear your house apart to get there, but they're going to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no dog is tall enough to reach up there anyway, right? Yeah. Even a German Shepherd can't reach the ceiling.
Silly statements, yeah.
You know, never have so many people who talk so much done so little.
Done so little.
Right? I mean, it's just now I see all this stuff over the internet. Everybody is hunting dog trainers are going to train military dogs. There's guys who say they've been deployed with dog teams and all this stuff, and they haven't. I know that from having talked to some people that we both know.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that because there's a lot of BS going on.
They're starting kennels and they've handled 1 dog. There's 2-week dual purpose courses out there.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. It's not possible.
Right.
Someone's going to get hurt. And when they go to court, that whole department's going to pay for it. But these chiefs are doing it because it's saving them money.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not. And it's got to stop.
But what about, let's talk about the people who are out there who are now they're military dog experts or protection dog expert or explosive dog experts. You know who they are. I'm not going to mention any names here. I'm not sore about it. It doesn't cut into my pay. It cuts into yours a little bit because you're the provider of these dogs. Now you've got B-rate people doing it.
And they're bringing them to these big seminars, which instantly gives them position power.
Like what seminars?
The big one I just left in Vegas. They're bringing them there. And these guys, just being there, these young, impressionable handlers are going to put them up here when they didn't do what they're going to do. There's a book out there that we talked about. And it's just so false. But these guys are put up on a hill. They're put up on a pedestal.
Yep.
And what they're writing and what they're doing is false.
Yeah.
And if I try to go after that,
yeah.
Like I just recently lost a pretty good contract.
Okay.
And I knew it was going to happen. I wrote it years ago. We had it during the entire war, never lost one guy. But I knew that eventually somebody's going to know somebody that's going to get rebid.
Sure.
And the people, they did it, and I lost the contract for 4 write-ups that were so ludicrous. One of them was I brought one of the top decoys into the class on my dime. That was a write-up.
Why was that a write-up?
I don't know, Robert, but that was one of them. Another one was I put the 3 top NCOs in their own private quarters. When I was in the military, senior NCOs got their own quarters. I just did it to be nice, wrote me up. I mean, it's so ludicrous what's going on. It's about who you know. It's about if you got that guy with a suit that can talk, you know. Look at me, I get excited talking about anything.
Right, yeah.
So I don't know. There's a lot of charlatans.
Yeah. And I mean, so for example, you know, we talked about the book, you know, where the helicopter calls down the almighty man. That's how you got recruited, right? Yeah. But there are those stories. But people believe this crap.
Well, of course they do, because they have no reason to doubt it. But what I'm saying is, these guys that run these seminars, they should vet these people. They should, you know, we were vetted when we started going to these things.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, I was 17 years, probably closer to 20 before I was in this game like I am now. These guys, they've handled one dog. Every trainer, if you go research these kennels from Texas to Wisconsin to Illinois, find out where they started. Just do a little research. The head of this program, the head of that program. And it's just sad because they don't have the core background. And then they even stole, you know, they'll steal from other people. I tell good dog handlers are thieves, but they're stealing things to help their program.
We're all thieves.
They're not stealing customers. They're not stealing
contracts.
Contracts.
No, I mean, stealing, I think, every artist, whether you're a dog trainer, musician, or painter, you're a thief.
If you're not, you're being left behind.
Right. I agree with that. But I mean, but being a thief on the other side is when you're lying about stuff. And that's kind of what I want to talk about, because you know, there's been some, and I hope you can talk about this, but in the military, you placed some dogs that I know about. For example, the ones that during the Saddam Hussein era.
Uday and Kusay.
Okay, so let's talk about
Saddam himself.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Those were my dogs. Those were not military dogs. They were handled by the military.
Okay.
They were handled by, but not Lackland, you know, who took claim for that. They found one of my dogs still attached to Uday. The way they found Saddam down in that hole is they were about to give up, and one of the dogs indicated, and that's where he was. But it wasn't it wasn't an originated military dog.
Yeah.
And I don't, for people to tell them that some civilian guy, you know, provided that, where's the dishonor in that? They're lying and saying they did it. No, they didn't.
Right.
No, they did not.
Yeah.
So.
But so that dog that found Saddam, okay, that's a dog that one of your dogs.
Yeah.
And they didn't know he was down there.
No. They almost, I can get this wrong because I'm old.
Whatever.
But they had searched and searched and searched. And if it wasn't for that dog, they'd have left him there because he had made a bunker.
Right.
And it was concealed. The dog started working that area. And the handlers went, whoa, something's down here. And they went in and got him. Uday and Kusay, they were hitting a building of some sort. I'm not going to try to say I know this. I wasn't there.
Yep.
But I'm so proud of what they did. They knew that they had to clear that, and they knew if the humans had to do it, they were going to put themselves in the line of fire. So they sent one of my dogs, and all hell broke loose, and they hit that place. And when all the smoke was gone, there was that dog that I'd called Steve Stoops when I was training this dog with a civilian policeman, but it was too much, and I knew it. This dog went in there and took Uday or Kusay, one of them two little bastards. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
But get no credit, but I'm proud of it.
But there's so many people too that talk about, you know, that they were handlers in the Navy SEALs or this, you know, whatever teams they say they were in, and they weren't.
Some of them were not.
That was a hack from Goofy.
Was it?
He's saying they're hacks.
Oh, did he say hacks?
Yeah, he hacked. Or I think he's indicating it was a hack. No, but I mean, I think it's unfair because people say, oh, and in the old days you could say, oh, I was the martial arts champion, da 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 da, and you couldn't find out. But now you get the internet. The good and bad thing with the internet is you can say, I can post a bunch of fake stuff and flood it and say, oh yeah, Robert Cabral was a Navy SEAL Team 6, whatever operator and did this and did that. I hate that. Like I'm not a champion. I'm not a Schützen trainer. I love the sport. I could talk to guys like you all day long, and we already have since 2:00. We haven't shut up. But it's about humility. Like it's about when I talk to you, when I talk to Stoops, when I talk to Shan Krieger, and then like people like Frank Phillips in the sports, I'm in awe. Like I'm in awe listening to the stuff you've done. I think it's amazing.
And to us, it's just stuff we've done every day.
But it's cool.
And that's why I'm still doing it at 64 years old.
No, you're 64.
Yeah.
Any goal of retiring?
Hell no. Retire from playing
die,
with dogs
right.
when I die.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I'm still training when I can.
Yeah.
Right now, it's a little tough, but it's just the greatest thing in the world. Why would you quit?
I mean, you're playing with dogs all day long.
Playing with dogs.
You have a personal dog?
I wish you hadn't. Yes, I do.
Okay.
And it's a Bernese mountain dog. It's that.
Oh, it's Dwayne.
Yeah, it lays on the couch with me. It goes everywhere with me. It listens to me. And, I've had the pit bulls. One of the best dogs I ever had was a pit bull I bought in South America, trained up here. He could do everything from bombs to tracking. He would climb a tree if I told him. He would go in water and I could guide him. He'd go to the bottom, bring me anything. This was a human. He died young.
Oh, how did he die?
He died of cancer, but probably I got it tattooed on my arm.
What's his name?
Flash.
And so tell me a story, this, because I'm always intrigued by somebody like you and that insane connection that you have to one particular dog. So
Flash.
Okay, so that's your dog.
That was my dog.
Like Goofy said to me, but tell me about Flash.
I got him. I teach a lot down in Brazil. They brought me down there with another couple of trainers. One of our Canadian buddies was one of them, because they had the Pan Am Games. Okay. And they realized maybe they don't have the right dogs to protect these people. So they brought me and two others down there. The dogs they had were the worst I've ever seen in my life. So I called back to the kennels and had 5 of my dogs sent and donated them to them. Because the dogs were terrible, but these people they wanted to be dog handlers. They wanted to be better. So I hooked up with these guys. They started a little kennel down there, and we're still buddies today. In fact, one of them's coming next week up to the kennels, and they train just like we do. And they know what good dogs are now.
Okay.
And they're good at breeding. They know how to take a batch of puppies and get the most out of them.
Okay.
So, I got that
Flash.
dog. Flash was a pit bull. And while we were training, they brought this pit bull out. A lot of guys had pit bulls down there because they could
like
get
his
them.
Pets.
Yeah, but they were trainers.
Okay.
And they had this dog doing all kinds of tricks.
Flash.
Yeah. And he was very obedient. And I went, wow.
How old was he?
At that time, under a year.
Okay.
Well, I bought him.
Okay.
And I took him back to the States and I put bombs on him. I put tracking on him. I put everything. They had done the bite work. He was my buddy.
How big?
Wasn't
pounder?
much bigger than him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So medium size.
Medium size, red. Yeah. Human. And social. He actually protected one of our presidents with me.
A pit bull.
Yes. On a
Protected.
presidential. Yes. We went down to New Orleans. I had to take 3 teams down there. And one of them was me and my pit.
I mean, I think that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
Because people vilify pits all the time. I mean, I think they're good dogs.
Good dogs.
I think
you know how many we had in the war?
No.
We had tons of them.
Pit bulls.
Pit bulls. They're some of the best detector dogs you can never get, but it's that stigma. I've put pit bulls here in the States, but you just can't as a rule. But we had tons of them in Afghanistan.
I want to talk about that because I worked in the shelters for a long time rescuing dogs.
Yeah.
And it's not my breed. Like I've got a certain, it's a total vanity thing for me. Like they have to have that mask. They have to have I'm a totally vain person. I hate that about myself. Like I don't even want like a working line out Malinois. I want a show line. It has to.
You got to look good, right?
But the pit bulls in the shelter, I've seen so many that are so really amazing.
They're
dogs,
magnificent
right?
looking. Yes.
So now coming from you saying that and saying this amazing skill they have.
Oh yeah.
So because that's not known of a lot, and we have to admit there is dog aggression issues.
It's not known because of the people that have them that have made them stupid.
Okay.
And so everybody that sees that and sees those news reports of this, they think they're all like that.
Right. Of course
This
not.
dog you could lay your baby on him. And we've had many more.
Yeah.
Many more.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I love them. Love them.
Okay. And when because they also say that pit bull is not really a breed per se, it's like more of a classification, but like it's a Staffordshire Terrier, it's a American Pit Bull Terrier. That you're going for that line, right? I mean,
I don't know which one he was.
Yeah, okay. But he looked like your standard.
What you're going to find out about me, we do thousands and thousands of dogs, and we don't have one pedigree.
Okay.
It's not necessary.
Yeah, I know.
I'm lying. We'll get a few.
I know what you mean.
We'll get a few, but pedigree is the last thing I give a crap about. It's their drives and their instincts.
Right. But you're also not breeding the dogs, are you?
We tried that.
Okay.
Just like everybody else, and I didn't want to do it, but we tried it. And we quit just like the military has 17 times and everybody else. The problem with the breeding program, if it worked, who do you think would be doing it?
You.
Yes.
You'd be making a fortune.
I'd be making a fortune, but it doesn't work. And it doesn't work because of our society.
Tell me.
European society is everybody's in a dog club. Dogs go with them everywhere they go, from the restaurant to their friends' houses. United States, they're tied up to a tree, and we mess with them when we got time. The Europeans spend 3 nights a week and 1 whole day on the weekend at a club. The whole family does. When that starts happening in the United States, I'll quit flying over to Holland.
It's true.
Yeah.
And the dogs, and that, I learned this from Steve too, is those dogs are real social. They're real nice
Extremely
dogs,
social.
right?
Yes. That's why we went back during Vietnam. So you lead me, so it's your fault.
Yeah.
In Vietnam, it was all defense oriented. We were protecting air bases. The only thing that those guys, the only way we beat them, when we beat them, was with helicopters and airplanes. So they were trying to get in there and satchel charge everything. So we put dogs around the perimeter. All right. And those dogs, is what Tet Offensive, the dogs stopped that. And they did it because they were defense oriented assholes. I mean, they would bite you if you were within 3 to 6, 3 and 6, 9 feet. You were bit. And
what kind of dogs were those? Shepherds.
they were shepherds. There were also some Dobermans, some Rottweilers, because we got them all donated.
Okay.
But then near the end of the war, Schutzen USA came and said, "Hey, we'll help you." And all of a sudden, we see these dogs that people can be around, and it just wowed us. So a buddy of mine named Hawkinson did a paper. He was a real intelligent guy, big as heck, looked dumb as hell, but he wasn't. He did a proposal to the military because he did his research, and he says, we can go to Europe and we can buy hundreds of these things for very little. We were getting them dirt cheap. And we could save so much money because they've already been obedience trained, socialized, bite trained, and we can buy them right now. That's what changed the whole, changed everything.
Huh. Yeah. So when you say the pedigree doesn't mean anything to you, it's because you're not breeding them. You're looking for that dog to do that job, and that's it,
but
right?
Do you realize over there it doesn't mean anything to them either? Let's take Holland.
Okay.
Let's take Holland. They all know each other. It's a small country. They've got 25 clubs. That's all they do. So when they know Billy's got this dog, I got this bitch in heat, I want to breed with him because he won the championship. They don't need pedigrees. They know the drives. They know the backgrounds of every dog that they do that with. And they might even have them. Sometimes I ask them, we got it somewhere in a drawer.
Right.
But they don't care.
But they know. So they're not just
They
randomly
know where they come
breeding.
from.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Because we've got to differentiate that, right?
Well, it all comes from the KNPV clubs, for the Malinois, the IPO clubs for the Shepherds and the others.
Yep.
People don't understand. Von Stephanitz, the guy, the German, he's the one that tried to screw things up because he was such an aristocrat. He wouldn't let anything in but German Shepherds. And all these people had the Malinois, the Dobermans, the Rottweilers. So they started the IPO. And that's the only, they did it because they wanted to compete. They wanted to do what they saw these German Shepherds doing. And I got to meet some of the really best trainers in Germany back in the 70s and 80s. Got to go to their courses.
Yeah.
The ones that started the PSP program, if you're aware of what that is.
I do.
That was started by a guy named Alfred Mashievsky in Germany. And he was approached by NATO. And they asked him to formulate and write out the best training to get a police dog,
right,
and to get a detector dog. And he did it. I was at his school talking to him, and he told me, he says, we're German Shepherd people. This whole thing was designed for German Shepherds, and it was all designed for aggressive response. That's all it was done back then. And that's the tubes, the 100 throws with the shit inside of it. They did it for the bomb dogs too.
Wow.
They're still doing it. So they're teaching a bomb dog to chase this pipe, pick it up, bring it back to you, and put it in your hand so you can fight him with it. And there's still people doing it to this day.
Wow.
History is everything, and people don't they don't get involved in it enough.
Yeah.
But Alfred Malford's dead, but he was one of the smartest. He even knew that the system, the PSP, wasn't right, and he attempted to change it. The problem was all the Americans that went over there, they never went back. So they brought it here and taught us all, this is the only way to do it. I had people tell me, I asked them, why are you doing that for a bomb dog? Because it makes him better. They don't even know. Yeah, they don't even know.
Well, I think, if you think of most training stuff with trainers who differ on things, I think everybody thinks they're doing the right thing. I mean,
that's cool.
Yeah, like positive only trainers. They think, okay, this is the only way to train. We got to be positive.
And it's healthy because we're going back and forth.
Right. And as long as we open this communication, say, look, what works here might not work here. Like a lot of dogs might work better with this kind of training. Right. And there might be a time where if you had a really low drive dog or dog, maybe you would use that technique. But
wait a minute, Robert. When would you throw a pipe loaded with explosives and teach the dog to pick it up?
No, I'm saying if you had a low drive dog, you'd use something to get his drives.
To build that up, but I wouldn't.
Not with an explosive scent.
No.
Right. Yeah, I'm talking about something different. But the idea that there's good ideas in all these different things.
Everybody's got good ideas.
Everybody's got good ideas.
And I teach my way because I had to come out of the military and use what I thought I knew, which I didn't know, and create a system that worked for a broad spectrum of people. Now, I tell people, when you come to test your dogs, you have a certain thing that you want. That's what you test for. I test for a broad spectrum, so not every dog I got will fit what you got, but it will fit what I need, and then I can teach. So it's not the only way. It's just one way.
Yeah. It's the way that where it works for you.
It works for me.
And different strokes are different.
And I've changed it. I've changed it many times. If you say something smart, I'll steal it today and say I invented it tomorrow. Yeah. That's healthy.
Well, I think that's the way we need to be in dog training.
Yes.
And in helping dogs, because if we can learn something, pick something up, and I've learned a lot of really good things from really bad trainers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of good. But it's a particle that you put in yours.
Sure. All right, we're going to continue this conversation tomorrow, and I want to hear all about the dogs from John Wick. Okay. Because I'm that guy. I'm that guy who says, I hate when I see a Malinois in a movie. I hate when I see a pit bull in a movie. I hate when I see, because people for the most part are stupid. Yeah. And I hate to say that because I don't mean to cut down people, but what happens is people go, I want a Malinois. After John Wick, I want a Malinois. I want this. And, it's like, I don't watch, Top Gun and say, I want to go buy an F1 plane. I'm a little bit more rational about it. I wish more people did that. But, okay, tomorrow I want to hear about that. And there's a secret you're going to tell me about Halle Berry. Oh, okay. Okay, tell me tomorrow. All right, we're going to talk about it then.
All right.
Cool. Good. All right.
Great.